So let's start the questions on the Tempest. And Ashley, if you'd go ahead, I'm just going to repeat, take a look at the Julie Taymor. I'll embed this also into the Tempest site as well, so you can look at how she approached it. But Ashley, go ahead and ask your question regarding the Tempest.
Are we going to dive into the historical context of how the Tempest was formed to like perpetuate white ideology and like dehumanize people of different color?
Yeah, it's anybody else want to chime in there? Are you guys all waiting? So this is, I'll just wait for a second so I don't stomp on anyone. That's rude. This idea of the post-colonization viewpoint of the Tempest is one that I've been really thinking about a lot, of course, with Black Lives Matter, and because Caliban is generally referred to as a Black person. I've done a Caliban which was also female, which was trying to really split the difference between the half human, half Sycorax, which is the mother of that, of the other being. So yeah, we're, as far as context-wise, in the questions, you can answer based on what you know, and we'll talk about the Tempest. We're going to go into a discussion about it. We're going to break down how to look at it and just a mechanical looking at the cross plot and the way you can put the Tempest on. If you've looked at the assignment, how you can create a roadmap for that. But also, there is a play that has interpreted from Caliban's point of view called Un Tempest. And so this was originally written in French, and it's something that I will be bringing into the conversation. I think it's a really great, just going to write that down to reference. To represent, we need to look at when Caliban says, this is my island, it is his island. And what's happening, this would be an excellent part of the dramaturg's work for the Tempest in what is happening in Shakespeare's time of 1600. The slave trade has begun. What is happening for Shakespeare to write this play in this context for the audience in England, and how does that translate for centuries after into perpetuating this idea of white supremacy, that we can come to an island and overtake, which is exactly what happened with the United States. So I think that parallel is not a far stretch. It is right in keeping with what we have. And the purpose of the Tempest project, and this is your final project, besides doing the questions, which are your 50-point thing and your cross plot, we will be working on this play through the end of the semester for the next 2.5 weeks. And each person will be taking, it'll be somewhat like what we did. You'll be in a group, but each person will have specifically an assigned character that you'll be looking at, and you'll have an assigned background production team role. So you will be either a director, a stage manager, a dramaturg, or designer. And depending on excuse me for a second, depending on which backstage role you have, you'll be looking at each of these pieces of the character from a specific perspective of how was it historically and how are you going to interpret it for today. So yes, it's a huge question, Ashley, on can we in good conscience present this play the way it has been traditionally done? I think not. I think we need to really look at it as this is an egregious crime that has happened. And really, when we look at Prospero trying to truly control the universe for his own or her own purposes, you want to take a look at how that has shaped our thought about this play and about Shakespeare. And also, we'll talk about character breakdown in a minute, but when we talk about the clowns, Trinculo and Stefano, how interesting that those are the ones that embrace Caliban and yet still misuse him. So I think it's a very, very important question. And maybe we'll spend like another hour on it in lecture on Monday so that we can really go into that aspect of the play. Okay. All right, let's go briefly to just a screen share. I want to show you a couple of things about this project. It will be delineated completely how each person addresses it. And we've already discussed the role of the director. We've discussed the role of stage manager, and we've discussed the role of dramaturg, and we will be discussing roles of designers, and we've discussed the role of the actor. So let's just take a look at, I have a really short presentation about the play itself, just how we can make sense of it, how to try and untangle what seems to be the number of characters that are in it. Shakespeare worked really with a company of 12. So all of the characters together are able to be done with 12 people, and we'll show you how that happens. Let's go to screen share for a sec. I think I can just find it this way. Okay, so we're going to see this, and you're seeing the Tempest. So William Shakespeare wrote this. It's one of his shortest plays. It is has the fewest line count, and one of the last plays that he wrote. It is considered a comedy, and it's interesting. I think you can shape that statement any way. So, are we supposed to learn something from the pointed way that they make fun of Caliban, of Trinculo, of Stefano, the way that we see Prospero imposing his rule on things? Are we just supposed to be entertained by the antics of the two clowns? So there's an incredible amount of material here to look at. First of all, one thing we need to look at is the title of the play and check the meaning of each word. So Tempest, noun, a violent, windy storm, a raging tempest. And that doesn't feel like a comedy. It feels like actually exactly what Julie Taymor said, just parenthetically, when she was discussing this at TED Talk, and she was talking about her interpretation of Spider-Man, it was really considered a disaster in the theater world, and she ended up being fired from it, as did Bono ended up, or Edge. I think they both worked on it. It was just probably too big and too many things going on. There, people were injured. There was so much that happened, and Julie Taymor had such phenomenal success. I think that maybe the producer just gave carte blanche, meaning all permission to do everything. And then what happened was this raging tempest occurred. So when we're thinking about this play, The Tempest by Shakespeare, how is it that a tempest can be a comedy? And what are we supposed to take from this idea that there is a tempest, and what's underneath that word for the play? Every single scene is underscored by the fact that it still is the title of the play. So when you're reading the play, first you just have to read it, and probably you feel like it's a big bowl of spaghetti in your brain. And one of the things that can help is to, as opposed to layer on this incredibly complex meaning first, just try to see how is it organized? How can we see the play and begin to make sense of it? So The Tempest and many Shakespeare plays have three groups of characters that they're pretty distinct and separate groups that end up interacting in a variety of ways. So we can talk about Midsummer Night's Dream, we can talk about Antony and Cleopatra, or any of them. But so in The Tempest we have, and I'm just naming them, they can be any name that you want. They're certainly not official names. But if we look at the characters as the royals, and who's in that group, and we're discussing, I am in this group discussing the group of players that comes, the group of characters that arrives on the ship. Prospero is no longer royal, having been banished and stripped of his particular title. So the royals are Alonso, the Duke of Milan, Gonzalo, a wise person, a counselor, a confidant, older, to set the tone and to provide insight into story, much like the messenger was in Oedipus. Sebastian and Antonio. And even in that group of royals, we have two cohorts of sort of Alonso and Gonzalo, and Sebastian and Antonio. One is Prospero's brother, who conspired against him to become more powerful than he, because Prospero gave up his power to him. Prospero handed it over because Prospero got completely engaged and sidetracked by his study of magic. So it's not so much that he overtook Prospero's role, but that he gave it to him, and then he just took advantage of it. Others in the royal group, which are not necessarily the status royal, are Adrian and Francisco, who are misspelled, and they are courtiers, or they're just, you know, part of the entourage, or sailors who help guide the ship. They stay with the ship. We don't ever really see them on shore, and so they don't. There's reference in the beginning because they help create the Tempest through their language. The islanders are Prospero, who is the banished duke, Miranda, his daughter, who is now approximately 14 to 16 years old, Caliban, who is the true island indigenous person, and Ariel, who is also of the island and had been trapped in a tree. We see the spirits also of the island, and part of you know, the spirits that we can kind of align Ariel with in Juno, Iris, and Ceres, and other kinds of wood nymphs and reapers that come. And then the clowns, who are Trinculo and Stefano. They come off the ship, but they have a very different kind of attitude. They're not part of the royals. They are the butler and the okay, the butler and the cook. So I was going to say the butler and the valet, but that's the same. And they have come off the ship. They are separated from the other group. And then we have one more person, who is Ferdinand. And Ferdinand would come with the royals, but whereas Alonso, Gonzalo, Sebastian, and Antonio are set off on the island in one area, we do see Francisco and Adrian. We have Ferdinand, who's set off in a completely other area, and Trinculo and Stefano in a third area. So these people all arrive at the island. This is how it would work in a group of 12. These four characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ferdinand, who we'll add in. Let's see. I think he should have his own category right here. We're going to talk about this in just a sec. Let me go back. I'm going to just correct this and make Ferdinand have his own separate category here. So, you know, in each scene, how can we have this group of 12 create all these different characters? This is why I'm having you do the cross plot, and why you can see why it is so important. This is a look at the cross plot. You have a blank inserted into your page, and you have one you can download. So to create this particular way of organizing, you're going to look at the act and scene in which the scene is taking place. You'll look at the location for the scene, the event that occurs during the scene. What is the, you know, when we talk about the inciting event or the point of attack throughout a whole play, every scene also has that particular linchpin moment in the scene that propels it forward. And what pages are they? And the reason why you want a page number is simply to reference and for your easy reference, because you'll be divided into groups based on an act and scene. You'll be working with that one particular moment in the play. So to fill this particular assignment, you will indicate in Act 1, Scene 2, where are they located? Now, I could have said ocean/boat. I could have said ship. I could have said, whatever. This is a place where you're going to interpret, where are they? Are they in Prospero's cell? What part of the island are they? Is there part of the island that is Caliban's part of the island? Is there part of the island where Prospero does not go? Does Prospero stay close to his cell, which is his cave, his home? So I want you to think about those things. Who really does know the island? Who owns the island? And then how are the other people found on the island, and how do they find the island? And then they come to finally the end. So you're going to indicate across from each line, and assess Act 1, Scene 2, where are we? What is the incident that is really a linchpin in this moment? What page numbers? And the script is there on your pages as well under the Tempest assignment. And please use that one, because then we're all uniform. And also use that one because then you can highlight and copy those script lines to make your statements for your answers to the questions. Mm-hmm. So if Prospero's in this scene, you simply come to Act 1, Scene 2, and then you put an X. By the time you get the grid filled out, you will see which scenes have more impact because they will have more people in them. So all 12 people will be in that scene. You can also see which scenes will accommodate other characters. So if Ferdinand, Gonzalo, Alonso, Sebastian, Antonio are not replicated in any way, then these three characters can go on to become Trinculo and Stefano in another scene. Or Prospero in the next scene will be prepared to go on, and whoever is available will go to the next scene. So does that make sense to everybody? Or does it make a little bit of sense?
It makes a little bit of sense to me. I'm still kind of confused though.
Okay, so let's talk about what you're confused about.
I'm confused why the characters would transfer over to the next scene.
Well, for example, let's go back to that moment for a sec. So Prospero, yeah, I think, are you saying the character or the actor?
Oh, the actor.
So if you're working with a limited number of actors, then there's a second column that I would put in as a costume designer, which you're not required, where I would put actor. And maybe this actor, Bob, is going to play Prospero and Juno. Okay? So if you're working with a limited number of actors, you may not have enough actors to create all the roles. And then you have what's called doubling. So one actor will play more than one role. And right. So as, with Shakespeare having only 12, and we've got listed 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, any number, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and any number. So we have a minimum of 16 named characters, plus others who are helping to create a scene, whether they're sailors, whether they're nymphs, whether they're reapers, or other kinds of things, okay? So if we have 12 players and 16 roles, then we by absolute nature must do double casting so that an actor will play 2 roles. So what would happen in that case, Bailey, is that we would look at Bob playing, no, it can't happen with Prospero, but it could happen with Miranda. Bob could be playing Miranda in this scene, but in this scene over here could be playing Trinculo or Stefano.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
we'd put Bob and then we'd put Miranda Trinculo together so that we'd be able to see their track side by side, so we'd know when they'd be able to make a costume change or when they're going to be in each different scene. And the only way that you can do this kind of a breakdown is, first you have to do what's written in the script. So for your assumption, we can assume that we have 40 people playing this play and everyone only has one role, so anyone will only appear in this line when they are in this scene. So for Iris, Ceres, and Juno, they are only in Act 4. And the rest of their columns would be a blank. But because the rest of their columns are blank, it means that they are available to possibly also play one of these 4 characters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, any other questions about this, filling in this particular chart? We do want to make one comment on Act 4 is not actually separated into 2 sections in the script. It doesn't say scene A, B, and or scene 1A, scene 1B. It is separated that reason here to facilitate that idea of character and actor crossover. So where we first see the fantastic scene with Iris and Juno and Ceres coming in, and that's basically all we see. Then at the end of there's almost a scene break. We see Prospero and Ariel, and then we have all of the other characters entering into the end of scene 4, because this is the scene, the event of which is the wedding. Okay, and that's when we have the wedding of Miranda and Ferdinand. So that's why I've put a break here. It's just for convenience, and also because Act 4, Scene 1, and Act 4, Scene 2, Scene 1B, if we don't have enough people to handle all of the scenes, if we don't have enough groups, and I think we do. Yeah, we probably have enough groups to handle all of them, but then that can be a place where a group from Act 2, Scene 1, well, actually, that's not it. I'm trying to remember exactly when they come in, but let's say we see Trinculo, Stefano, and Caliban 2 or 3 times, then we could have one group of them come in here, okay? So it's just a way to try and understand which characters first are in which scene, what's happening in that scene, and then by looking at the scene, what scene and what act has the most weight, and actually think of this in physical weight, the most bodies on the stage. Okay, it's going to be in Act 4. It's like everyone is going to be on stage. So it actually tells you the weight, again, thinking about the ship moving back and forth when you're looking at the stage picture, what scene by weight is the most important? So then something significant is happening there. And then in scene 5, really Act 5, that's just the denouement, it's the resolution, and we get that. Okay, so that's our introduction to Tempest, and we're at the end of our time. We'll spend some more time on this on Monday. Please read it and take a look at the questions and do your answers. Remember, you have to cite, that is to copy the text of the play and put it into your answer after you answer in your own words. That's how you support your answer, or you do a justification of it. All right, questions? We just have a couple more minutes.
I'm just wondering, what do you suggest our time frame should be for this entire project by next week? Should we have had what done, in your opinion?
Just exactly what's in the week. Just do this. Just do the questions. Just do the cross plot, and then I will do a wrap up at the end. I'm going to work on that today because I'm going to give you your Oedipus and your first play report back. So by the end of today, hopefully I'll have looking forward for next week, and then that will be talking about trying to make a selection in terms of what actor scene, what character, what kind of backstage role you want to take. Okay, so think about those things, but I'll post the assignment and the breakdown of the whole project so that you can see what it is, and then you can just think about it. And then next week we'll make those assignments.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So great to see you guys again. Sorry I wasn't here Monday. I appreciate your patience on that. And if there's nothing else, and if you have any questions about your midterms or your headlines to the page, I thought they were terrific. So please just email me. And if you can't submit something, email me and tell me what you're doing so that we can arrange for your headlines to be submitted. All right, I'm going to end the meeting. We're straight up at 11, and I can stay on for office hours. All right.